Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey, it's Debbie, your host of the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. And I'm going to bring on one of my new friends, Coach Bronson Dant, who I met on the Low Carb Cruise that Dr. Ken Berry hosts that we just had in this past May 2022. And you must go on the cruise with us next year. It's in, I think, beginning of June. If you look up Low Carb Cruise 2023, it will be out of Galveston, Texas, and going to 3 or 4 different ports. But when we are at sea, we are in the bottom of the ship in the conference room having sessions all day long. So one of the speakers, including myself, we were talking about fitness and health and chronic stress and nutrition and all sorts of things, how to be fit and healthy from the inside out. And I really liked what Coach Bronson was talking about. His book is called The Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book. And it's a guide to optimize keto for a better quality of life. But it's not what you think. It's not about, here's your workout program. It's really about, I think, my take on it when I read it right away was mindset. Really rewiring how we approach our fitness program to burn fat, to optimize health and improve performance. And I know most of you are fellow endurance athletes as myself. Although I'm not competing right now, I still train for endurance sports as I love doing Ironmans in my previous life and did Ironman competitively 2001 to 2012 in my age group. Competed, not pro, but I competed at a high level. I did 50K trail runs over the years. North Face 50K trail run in San Francisco Marin Headlands is what I love to do in December. And then I would do marathons and often did Boston Marathon each year after qualifying in other local races. New York Marathon was another favorite of mine. So I did endurance events starting 2000 was my first Maui Marathon, and I did San Diego Rock and Roll. Then I got into Ironmans in 2001. So I've always done endurance sports. Wrap it up to what Bronson's talking about. That isn't the way to increase your lean body mass to build muscle and increase your metabolism. It is more catabolic, breaking down than anabolic sport. So as endurance athletes, I keep trying to bring on guests on the show to talk more about how to be fit and healthy from the inside out. I'm a huge believer in really not doing zero carb, but, timing your carbs, as Ben Greenfield and Peter Defty tell us, and Rob Wolf, strategic carb timing in the evening, saving those carbs for later in the day, not processed food, not garbage carbs, but real food sources of carbs if you feel the need for them. And that goes to another show on intuitive fueling and eating. But if you need a sweet potato or a potato, or I can't do rice, but some people can tolerate rice without spiking their blood sugar. But that might be good for you, the endurance athlete, if you need to, but you don't often need all those carbs. Females might need a little more the week before their cycle, but what we're going to talk to Bronson about is more of a keto carnivore diet. And Bronson is more of an animal-based carnivore and does more strength training and CrossFit style workouts and heavy lifting, which I think is amazing. But you might feel that, you might need to adjust those macro ratios, not just do a strict carnivore. It's up to you. So we both talk about personalized nutrition and really individualizing everything we talk about. And that's what I do in my new client special to get people started on what I call the holistic method coaching program, that I work with you as an individual, looking at some clues, symptoms, ancestry, background, your genetics, looking at what is the best food plan for you based on your schedule, your stressors, your exercise program, and really matching your fueling with training. Because if you're not doing a lot of exercise or it's your rest day, you can probably lower your carbs even more. And then some days when you're doing 2-day workouts, you can tolerate a little more carbohydrates and place those in between your 2-day workouts. If you're just lifting weights and doing more HIIT training and some glycolytic workout, you might find just a little carbs, berries, honey might be good. Or some people like Bronson can just do animal-based and fuel enough. So there's not one size fits all approach. All these great, amazing guests I have on the show, we talk about examples, and what works for them might not work exactly for you. I'm a female and I've had my years of chronic stress disease, as I say, adrenal exhaustion back in 2013. And it took me probably the past 8 years to really figure out my stressors, external and hidden internal stressors. It took a long time because I actually had to change my life. I had to move out of my stressor environment where I lived, the studio I ran, my business I was doing, my schedule I had, and I moved our life, my husband Neil and I, from Bellevue, Washington, Seattle to North San Diego. And I finally found happiness, peace, and quiet, and little less stressful, hectic life. And so what I'm saying, as I ramble, as I always do, I think you need to look at what works for you and individualize your program. So that's what I do with clients. I do a new client special, includes 2 45-minute coaching sessions, reviewing what I looked at and gathered and assessed, and create some suggestions for you and figure out, let's tweak this, let's keep that, let's adjust here, and figure out what works best for you. And then we do a second call after that, and then go over some questions and maybe some adjustments and just experiment, because this is all an N=1 experiment. It's a journey. It's a transformational journey. And for female athletes that are still cycling, I'm trying to figure out a calendar. I made one. I'm going to see if someone can help me make it look a little more professional, but really adjusting your fasting exercise days, your more strict keto days, and when you can do more like a longer fast, if that works needed for you. But really looking at your 28, 30-day cycle. So looking at a monthly calendar and color coding it, and then figuring out with my female client, what we're going to adjust for your workout schedule and nutrition and fasting. And stress week, like de-stressing the week before your cycle, doing more restorative yoga, Pilates, and all that stuff. And then doing a little more natural carbs that week before. So what Bronson and I are talking about is a ketogenic carnivore diet that works for most people. And he's going to give his examples. And he has a great book I would look up on Amazon, again, called The Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book. But it's really about optimizing keto or more carnivore, as he's doing, for a better quality of life. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I will bring up my dad just passed away a couple weeks ago, and I am really passionate about helping you be fit and healthy from the inside out, really working on what you're doing now, training for races, but making sure your secondary goal or equal goal there is to train for the race of life, train for your future self. Because if you look at how your parents are aging, you might want to stop and go, okay, am I going to end up like them? Am I doing everything I can to be my best version of myself? And really working on your digestion and your gut health and liver detox. So many people's livers are congested and they're high estrogen dominance for men and women. So I really think it's important to really work on what you're doing now and being fit and healthy from the inside out, really revealing hidden internal stressors, those hidden stressors that impact the whole you. And if you're struggling to burn fat, struggling with your performance and just overall health, you really want to investigate what could be going on. So if you like a consultation with me on that, that'd be something I do, and I'd be glad to talk to you. So let's get back to Bronson. He has coached people the past 10 years. He started on his 40th birthday going towards a CrossFit gym owner in 2014 and really got into that health and fitness over the years and started creating programs for his clients to help improve their quality of life, to increase their physical freedom consistently and sustainable lifestyle habits. In 2018, Bronson discovered that following the carnivore style was a secret to optimizing his metabolic health and performance. Since then, he's designed specific methods to use both nutrition and fitness to radically improve the lives of people all over the world. So it's a great story, and I love his positive mindset. He has great analogies. We'll talk about some things from the book, but it's better to get a book. It's a great read. And I pinned down a lot of pages here about being fat adapted. We'll talk about that, to keto adapted, to keto optimized, and what that means. There's some great information on that. You know, fat adapted 1 to 2 weeks, improving the use of fat for fuel, and what keto adapted 4 to 6 weeks produces fat for fuel, and then keto optimized 8 to 12 weeks, leveraging your ketogenesis and gluconeogenesis for fuel. Really interesting topics we'll dive into. How you can use exogenous or fats can be detrimental, and really getting your body to use its internal fat stores for fuel is great. So let's talk to my friend Bronson. We both will be at KetoCon if you happen to be there. I think we'll be at some other conferences coming up here in the near future. We've got Low Carb USA conference in San Diego in August. If you're around, let me know. That's half an hour from my house. So I am near Solana Beach, Encinitas, Del Mar area, La Jolla, San Diego. So all those places are 20, 30 minutes from my house. So if you're in the area, let me know. And if you would like a discovery call, a free call, 20, 30 minutes to go over some questions you have and see if some of the coaching programs I offer might be a good way to get started. And just doing that new client assessment, I think, is what I designed for you, the listeners, to help figure out where to get started, how to get started, what to do, how to course correct. So love talking to you, and let's bring on Bronson and share our conversation with you. All right, guys, I've got my new friend Bronson on the show today to talk about this great new book, the Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book, The Complete Guide to Optimizing Keto for a Better Quality of Life. And I am all about quality of life. Note, if you're watching the video, I'm in North San Diego with the sun shining behind me, a little too bright. They can't even see me, but I moved here from Seattle for improved quality of life. And
well, that's the place to go.
Yeah. And problem is, my glass house, you have the sun every direction. So I appreciate you coming on the show. We met on the Low Carb Cruise. Dr. Barry connected us, and you are a fellow speaker, and you're also speaking at KetoCon, where I will be as well. So I am excited to dive into the book because there's so much great information about mindset and how to use a keto carnivore type of food plan for building muscle. I'm all about the aging process. Especially, we had to reschedule this podcast because my dad just passed away, and it just makes me fired up of the choices we make and the story you share about your mom we can touch on, but it's just, what we're doing now as we're both 50, congratulations, entering the 50 club.
I'm in the club.
It's like, let's live our best life, the second half of our life, and how can we thrive every day and not survive the day. And it's just the choices we make now set us up for our future self when we're 70, 89 years old. Great. And you look at, I looked at how my parents are aging, what happened to my dad. It's so much of it can be controlled, but it starts now. So I really appreciate your book on getting your mind right to make these choices, because they are not easy, and health doesn't come in a pill, and we have to actually take effort to make these changes in our life. So I'll stop talking and let you start kind of sharing about what is your why, your passion as an individual, what drives you every day.
Yeah, what drives me every day is seeing exactly what you talked about, and seeing people actually, things click on in people's brain, things click on in the way that they look at their lives and their future. And there's so much negativity, and there's so much things beating us down. When people realize that they actually have control and they can determine what their future looks like. Yeah. That seeing that light bulb moment for people it's what gets me up in the morning every day. And having those conversations, working with people, having the relationships with the people I'm working with and the people that I share information with. But the emotional connection that I have to that process is It comes from a lot of different areas, but mostly with seeing my grandparents as they got older. So, you were talking about your parents. For me, it was my grandparents, and watching as they got older, had to give up their independence, move in from the home that they lived in for 40, 50 years into an assisted living facility. And then just everything from there just went downhill. So watching that process, and I was just getting into fitness at the time. I didn't know nearly the things that I knew now. And if I had known then what I knew now, maybe I could have done something to prolong their lives, prolong their quality of life, and all those sorts of things. So just that process doesn't have to happen. And I think that's what drives me, is knowing that there are things that could have been done to help them that other people need to know about.
Yes.
I think that's really what drives me.
Yeah. And that's, I don't want to I'll start crying if I get into it, because it gets me so angry and fired up that, just with my mom and my sister over the weekend and the choices we make, it's like, it seems so simple, but you have to be so motivated. So you wrote this book, and it really talks the first part that I love about mindset, because it's not about here's what exercise to do. You're not saying like a workout routine, and it's not about that. But the half the book to me is like, get motivated, feel this inner drive that you need to have to make these choices. As I said, health doesn't come in a pill. I think a lot of things that happened to my dad is because he didn't exercise. He didn't go out in the morning for a walk. He didn't do the strength training. They drank a lot at night. They had, happy hour every night. And so much of it's like, that's your choice. And I had this conversation with my sister over the weekend. Like, we choose to live our life this way, but we do it differently. And to see parents and your family members be totally opposite than you, it's like, okay, I'm going to watch you disintegrate versus thriving. And it's so frustrating as a health person, health coach, and an athlete, that to watch family members that you love and you want to grow old with them, watch them make those choices. And
you want to just grab them and say, stop doing this, right? Yes. Especially when it's people, it's not even extended family, right? We're talking about immediate family, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, where it's like, I've had conversation. This has been a struggle that I've had to deal with, as I've learned more and gotten more into this and been more vocal about the things that I learned and helping people, that I actually have more impact vocally with my voice with people that are not in my circle.
Yes.
The only thing that people in my circle are paying any attention to is the things that they see in my life, but they'll never acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. So I can't talk to them about it, because then it becomes a defensive thing. It becomes a stress point. It just goes in the complete opposite direction that I want it to go.
Exactly.
I can
did that yesterday.
Yeah, right. I can live my life the way I live my life, but I can't be vocal to the people in my circle.
You can't change it.
Family friends. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do. So I have to accept them and hope that they're seeing what's happening in my life, and eventually they'll start trying it. It's the unfortunate reality of just human interaction and how that works.
But you got your mom to change. You changed, if you want to, I will record your intro and share your story, but your mom kind of listened to you. How'd that happen? Because I know it's not too late ever to start.
It's never too late to start. She started when she was 60 with me. And she did it more out of support because I was opening a gym. So it was less about her initially. It was more about, okay, I'm getting old. Her big thing at the time was two things. One, she wanted to support me because I was starting the gym. Two, she had gotten a bone density scan and was told that she was pre-sarcopenic. So she was kind of scared of like, okay, wait, what does that mean? What do I need to do? Whatever. And the doctor was like, well, you can start exercising. She said, well, my son's opening a gym. Maybe I'll start doing that. So it's just kind of the best, the perfect storm of events. And she started doing it, and then she started liking it. Mm-hmm. And then that was just, that's been 8 years now. So she just turned 68. She's, her favorite thing to do is deadlift. She loves eating meat. She's been carnivore-ish, mostly carnivore for about 3 years now. She's reversed her sarcopenia. She's improved her thyroid. Like, everything is improved 100-fold. And with her, the whole idea of what I'm doing is for helping people understand that it's never too late to get started. It's never too late. You're never too old to grow muscle. You're never too old to improve your freedom and physical ability. She's a perfect example of that. And I try to put her out there as much as possible to say, look, guys, this is someone who's done it. And this is how she's done it because it works.
Yeah. And what is it you're having her do? Like, what's a good example of what you talk about in your book that we can just start in is, how do we, and I keep talking about Dr. Gabrielle Leon, and we had Dr. Sean Baker on the show, and really talking about muscle is the organ. Oh yeah. Team Protein is your shirt. It is like how to optimize your health, focus on what happens as we get older. And I would say like, well, why don't we reverse that by actually taking action and doing those things that we lose? So to look at muscle is the organ of longevity. So we should be lifting heavy things, lifting weights, and focusing on building muscle back up because we're, losing it. So why don't we speed up, putting it back on instead of having that fight against muscle loss? And then what we eating more protein. And, Dr. Sean Baker talked a lot about that, but what brought you to this program as a CrossFit studio owner? Mm-hmm. What led you into doing your more of a strict carnivore? Now, are you keto carnivore? What do you, I hate titles.
Yeah, I'm pretty, if you want to put a label on it, I'm pretty strict carnivore. I pretty much do lamb, beef, and eggs. That's pretty much my staple. Unless we're on a cruise and there's escargot or some other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
endless supply.
Yeah, endless supply of lobster. Oh my God, that was a great night. So yeah, what led me to it? Honestly, it was initially health. Two reasons. One was health. I had IBS. I had a lot of gastric distress issues. We won't get into that too much, but there were a lot of things that were going on, not in a good way when it comes to my gut. And then secondly, from the fitness perspective, I guess you want to call it, is I was getting tired. I was exhausted with the idea of being frustrated every time I wanted to get lean with getting weak, and getting frustrated with every time I wanted to get strong, getting fat. Like I couldn't find a balance between, I want my body to look a certain way, I want to feel a certain way, but I also want to improve athletically, improve my performance. I couldn't find a way nutritionally to make that happen until I started doing carnivore, until I simplified my nutrition methodology, which that's kind of one of the ways I look at carnivore. So doing going to carnivore, it was the Joe Rogan, Sean Baker podcast from several years ago. I heard that. And then I was like, wow, this is interesting. I looked into it for a few days. It didn't take long. Looked into it for a few days and then said, okay, I'll just start. So I started carnivore May 1st, 2018, and kind of haven't looked back since.
I would say, my husband's more of a foodie. So to do carnivore, do you feel like you can be creative? Are you not like interested in fancy meals? Because I know even Ben Greenfield doesn't like carnivore because he likes other foods. And do you feel like you're into having not fancy meals, but more variety? I mean, it's just kind of boring. As I said, Sean Baker, isn't it kind of boring having the same thing, every few days and just eating a plate of meat? I look forward to every single meal. Like I can't wait to get up in the morning and make my eggs and meat or whatever it is I'm making for the day, or later in the afternoon having my second meal. Like I enjoy every single bite every single time, and I have for 4 years. Mm-hmm. The thing is, and this is maybe something we can talk about, is the idea of putting labels on things and saying something is carnivore or not. Yeah, I hate labels.
I personally, I would prefer to say that my nutrition lifestyle is based on nutrient density. Yeah. I prefer to make the choices that are as nutrient dense and bioavailable as possible, which for me tends to be mostly meat.
Yeah, because that's what. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just say, because, you can have, like, someone wants to have vegetables or do other stuff and mix things up and have fancy meals, and they need this or that to make that happen. Fantastic. I think if the focus is on, are you doing the most that you can to optimize what you're putting in your face, then that's where you're going to see the benefit.
And that's what I agree with, that is optimizing, choosing foods, because I don't like labeling it, because I said this on a podcast or blog or something I did recently, that I eat what I feel like. And if some days I want this, I have that. Some days it might look more carnivore, but it's not intentional. I'm more intuitive eating and fueling. But optimizing nutrient dense foods is what I like to think of it as, and I know Brad Kearns was talking about that too. It's not necessarily like carnivore, keto carnivore, whatever you want to call it, or proper human diet. It is a nutrient rich diet. And I think that's what everyone talks about on like the low carb cruise that Dr. Barry's having each year now. And talking to other people, it's not, carnivore. It's just eat real food. I've always said from nutritional therapy 5-7 years ago, is eat real food that balances your blood sugar. And that ends up being, I saw Sean Baker, like, well, if you take out all the oxalates, lectins, phytates, all this stuff that can be irritant to your gut, what do you end up with is just meat. And what do you look for in the most nutrient dense? Like Danny Vega showed a couple of years ago on the cruise, his seminars, like, look at I'm not going to eat organ meat. Like he showed the awful stuff, awful, but all the nutrients in it. So I choose to do Paleo Valley Organ Complex instead, because I'm not going to.
I do.
I'm not eating all the organ complex parts. But talk about kind of what's a day look like for you. So like meal prepping, do you measure? How do you count your macros? Let's dive into that first.
That's one of the things I talk about when I talk about we'll just say carnivore for lack of trying to put it in a box, but I think it's simple. So for me, I get up in the morning, I make my coffee with some heavy cream, usually, just because I don't like drinking black coffee.
I know.
As much, unless I have to, unless I'm camping in the woods. Like there's something of like, if I'm camping in the woods, I'm totally fine with black coffee. I don't understand what that is, but if I'm at home, like I can't do black coffee. But yeah, so I have some coffee, and then usually around 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm a little late today. I haven't eaten yet today, but 10:30, 11 o'clock, I make my first meal, which is usually something like 8 to 10 ounces of some kind of meat with 5 to 8 eggs. That's my first meal. And then my second meal is usually something similar, unless I want to mix it up where, maybe I'll do some fish in there. I'll throw some fish in instead of like a red meat. I may do, have you ever made, what's the word I'm looking for? Chicken tenders with pork rinds, like fried chicken?
No, but I did win that on the low carb cruise, the pork rind crumbs stuff.
Pork rind crumbs,
I didn't know what to do with them.
Batter, you get some eggs, you get the chicken tenders and you fry them up in butter. Like that's fantastic. So it's pretty much, it's super simple. I don't meal prep. I just make what I need when I make it, because it's not like there's a lot that goes into just cooking up some meat. Mm-hmm. My meal prep is right when I'm eating. It takes 10-15 minutes to make something and then I'm good to go.
Yeah. It's like Natalie, your girlfriend, made Maria Emmerich's protein sparing bread. And I was looking at them like, that looks awesome, but that looks like way too much work.
Yeah. So
to whip it up and do all that.
She's much more bougie when it comes to her food than I am. So she likes making all these different things and playing around with baking stuff and cooking stuff and doing things like that. So she has usually a little bit more prep time. She's using the crock pot all the time. And so, I do steal the food that she makes when it's good like that, but I don't do it myself.
Yeah. So like put in your workouts. You're more a CrossFit type of workouts. You're doing high intensity workouts, probably some days a week, and then you're doing heavy lifting. Talk about that. And then let's talk about, I always like to share with our athletes, or more probably endurance athletes that are listening, but fueling and matching your fueling with your training. And how do you do that? Like, I'm not going to eat a steak and then go do a set of box jumps and burpees. So what do you do for nutritionally and timing your nutrition, your macros around your exercise day? Yeah.
So my exercise so what I'm doing for my fitness routine, I'm actually in the process of changing over to something that's completely different. But traditionally I've been more of a CrossFit, what we call conjugate program, which is a combination of general physical preparedness and strength, functional movement, things like that. So getting a bunch of different things from a metabolic perspective, short-term, medium-term, long-term exercises or workouts, full body stuff, ranging all over the place, or all kinds of different modalities. So, that's, traditionally you think of that as being very glycolytic. It's actually a lot of glycolytic. It's a lot of oxidative. It's a broad range if you're doing it right. So it's not any one thing. So I think that's a misconception, that people think CrossFit is all glycolytic, which really not any more glycolytic than any other sport. In fact, if you're doing it right, you're getting just as much glycolytic as you are oxidative or phosphogenic. So it kind of goes across the board. What I'm actually doing now, if anybody's interested, is I'm actually switching out of that. So I've been a CrossFitter for 12 years. I've been doing that. I've focused and changed some of the percentage of how much I focus on different things, like maybe I'm still doing CrossFit, but I'll maybe focus more some time on some sports stuff, or I'll maybe focus more on gymnastics and try to get better at specific areas. But what I'm doing now is I'm pretty much pulling back completely from CrossFit, and I'm actually going to be following some powerlifting protocols and trying to work specifically on core overall, just raw strength. So squat, deadlift, bench, that's what my focus is going to be, and just seeing how far I can go. Because this is another thing we talk about. I'm doing a lean bulk right now. So I'm working on adding lean mass without having any change in body fat percentage. So I'm kind of doing an N+N=1 experiment with that. So part of that is being like, what can I do to get as strong as possible and put on as much lean mass as possible? So I'm switching up the whole thing. As far as nutrition goes, I don't worry about timing at all. So this is something that I espouse to my clients, and it's what I do myself is, for me, my focus is on getting what I need in a day, period. That's the baseline for me. So if I eat before a workout or after a workout, it really doesn't matter to me, as long as I'm getting what I need in a day. The fuel for my activities is coming from my body. I don't feel like I need to add extra, because I'm not working out at a level. I'm working out at a level that's higher than average, but I'm not doing so much volume, and I'm not doing it at such a level of intensity at, 4 or 5 days straight in a row that I have to worry about fuel replenishment in the time before I get my next rest.
Yeah.
So that's not really an issue for me. And I think for 99% of the people, every average Joe, I don't think that's an issue. So I don't really worry about it.
Yeah. Then you get to, like, a lot of people listening are triathletes that they're probably burning themselves out and not eating enough, not getting enough protein, because they are doing way too much cardio when you are training for a half Ironman or Ironman, and you've got swim, bike, run. And then, I used to always talk about this when I got my health issues and wrote it in my book, Life's Not a Race, that I was doing yoga, because you got to do yoga, you got to do your strength training, you have to do your interval training. And then I was swimming, biking, and running, and, doing all of that is like a lot of training. And then you're training at a high level. I was elite athlete, top age group athlete with the training schedule. So I'm doing that 20 hours a week on top of being a trainer and demoing Debbie demos and coaching people that, you end up doing so much exercise. And so I would say less is more, including for that. But I also, going back to what you're saying, variation, I think is so key to vary what you're doing. Like, I'll write a program for a client for the month, or, building it in a quarter, whatever it might be, but people need to vary what they're doing so much to see more results. Like, I would do Ironmans for 15 years, and I would say, I'm doing 20 hours a week cardio and training for Ironman, but I didn't lose weight. My body was so used to it. It's like, no big deal. 5-hour bike ride. Woohoo. It wasn't like I was going to lose 2 pounds of weight off my body and get to be the skinny rail because I was doing all that training. So it's obviously, too much of anything causes imbalances and dysfunction, but also the importance of your saying is like building muscle and prioritizing your protein intake throughout the day and lifting weights, heavy things, or whatever it might be, that you're varying that periodically.
Yeah, it's basically, it's about work capacity. So there's a lot of things that go into work capacity. It's not just endurance, right? Stamina is an aspect, strength is an aspect. I like to talk about it in the analogy of looking at a balloon. If I have a balloon and I take it out of the bag, right, we have 3 metabolic pathways. If I take it out of the bag and I just take the balloon and I pull it and stretch it and snap it, that's like the phosphogenic, right? It's quick, it's hit, it's bing, bang, boom, it's there. And then you have glycolytic and oxidative, where if I just blow it up a little bit and then let the air out, it's going to come out. That's glycolytic. If I blow it up and stretch it out and make it as big as possible and then let it out really slow, that's oxidative. So the different aspects. Now, what happens is if you only do one or the other, the balloon never gets more capacity. It never can get bigger. Right. So, we've all done this. You take the balloon out, you stretch it, you blow on it, you stretch it, you blow on it, you try to make it as big as possible. So training in multiple things allows the total capacity of what your body can do, so that you have more to work with. So I work with a lot of people that are endurance athletes, and every single time, the first thing I don't walk in the door and say, hey, we're not running for a month, but I talk to them about, let's change the priority and let's cut your running down from 5 days a week to maybe 2 days a week or 1 day a week. And let's work in the gym 3 days a week. And we do that for 3 months. And in some cases, they may be like, you know what, my schedule, whatever, I'm just going to not run at all. We're doing things metabolically differently than running. And they come out of that and they go run for the first time and they set a 2-minute PR on a 5K, or they set a 5-minute PR on a 10K, or they're like, what the hell happened? And I'm like, well, you made other aspects of your body more efficient, which support the sport that you're trying to perform in. Yeah. So it's not, you can wear one pathway down. If the other pathways aren't helping compensate, then you're missing out on performance.
So that kind of leads me to something you talked about in your book, not to use heart rate monitor. And so we always, in Ironman training, a lot of people do maffetone, the max aerobic function heart rate, to build your aerobic engine. And then when you're not seeing results, you start doing a monthly test to see if you're getting faster at that, say 130 heart rate. And then you add speed work. But I find as an aging athlete, I need to do the less low heart rate work and more intervals, and then focus on more strength training. So I think, what you're saying with heart rate training, kind of hear your perspective on that for athletes, and how important as we age, how we got to change. And I say, I'll just throw in, because I'm 50 now, not to blame the aging process and use it as an excuse, but embrace the aging process and adjust how you train. Because when I was 30 and 40, kicking ass in Ironmans and marathons, and now I struggle, but so why train the same way I did when I was 30 and 40? I need to change differently. So talk about your perspective on that, and then the heart rate training.
Yeah, the heart rate. So there's two differences. There's differences. And I think in the book, I'm talking about heart rate training primarily from the idea of fat loss. People look at heart rate training as, this is how I want to lose fat, and understanding that you're going to have much more success building muscle and letting that improve your metabolic function, so that then the fat manages itself, right? Your body's going to be better. If you have more muscle, your body is better at managing fuel. So fat loss isn't something you need to worry about. And it's a similar corollary to the athlete. Instead of fat loss, we're talking about endurance and performance. So if you have, it goes back to the balloon analogy, if you have muscle, you have more capacity to work. The same level of work done requires less energy to do it. So it increases your ability to perform, because you're spending less energy to get the same amount of work done. You can do work longer. And so that's where the heart rate, your heart rate, the heart rate is a marker that shows how hard you're working, but it has nothing to do with how much work you're getting done.
Yeah. So
right. And that's the thing that people kind of miss up. Well, my heart rate's this. Well, okay, my heart rate's this, and I'm doing twice as much work as you are. Why is that? Right. Yeah. Because there's other factors that go into that.
So that's so true. So it kind of goes into what you're just saying, is how do we lose fat? Everyone's trying to lose weight, and we're usually doing it the wrong way. So what do you find the way to lose fat weight nowadays with your research and your experiments?
Build muscle. It's all about metabolic function. Fat loss is extra body fat is a symptom of a poorly functioning metabolism. So if you can fix the metabolism, then the fat loss will take care of itself. And fixing the metabolism is a combination of the choices you make in your lifestyle, as well as giving your body time to actually work properly. So you can't fix your metabolism if you're doing things to make your metabolism not work. So you got to kind of pair all that stuff together. But I look at it like a bathtub. If I have a bathtub that's overflowing, there's a reason the bathtub is overflowing. The plug doesn't work. There's too much water coming in, whatever it may be. But if I'm spending all my time trying to use buckets, mops, towels, and all this other stuff to pick up the water that's coming out of the bathtub, but I never fix why the bathtub is overflowing, that's kind of what we're doing right now. A lot of people are just focused on the wrong thing.
Well, that's a different rabbit hole. I won't go there, but what is the why? No one ever in traditional medicine looks at why is that not working. Instead of giving it a Band-Aid, or, keep doing the same thing over and over again and try to expect different results, insanity that we don't really, that's what I do. And you do, but I think too, is looking as a health fitness coach, I'm investigating what's actually going on and figure out what's a personalized program for you based on what's going on, your signs and symptoms and labs. But I think so many people just don't look at alternative methods and, take a medication as like anti-acid pill, for example. I was dealing with someone that's like, that doesn't solve why are you not digesting your food? And same with exercise. Like, hey, I'm not burning fat. What am I doing wrong? Because most people in their head have it programmed that I need to go do the elliptical machine 30, 45 minutes, an hour, 5 days a week to lose weight. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
And that's going to exponentially increase, right? So first you got to do it 30 minutes and then you're like, oh, I did this for a week. I lost half a pound. Okay, great. And then 3 months later, you're on there for 45 minutes. And then a month later, 6 months later, you got to be on it for an hour. And like, when you do it that way, it only works when you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's the key that people need to understand. And it's the same for athletes, right? If you want to improve, you need to build that capacity, build your metabolic base first, right? And that's one of the things I love about protein and strength training is I have people all the time. If we talk about fat loss, everybody I work with, right? We go through this process of, well, if I'm losing weight, my metabolism is going to slow down. I say, no, that does not have to happen. If you're getting enough protein, if you're building your muscle, that is going to maintain your metabolic function. So I have people who lose 20 pounds and their BMR goes up. And people are like, that doesn't make sense. How does that even work? This is because they gain muscle mass. They gain function. This is about your body's ability to function and perform. And that's what we're focused on.
So burning more calories at rest all the time rather than just burning cardio machines. You're burning that 100 calories probably while you're doing it, and versus lifting weights and eating protein, having more lean body mass, you are burning more calories all the time. People forget that. I don't know where we got so stuck on doing cardio machines, but I would say look in the gym, look in the gym and look at the people doing the cardio machines and look over to your left and see the people lifting weights. What do their bodies look like? It all has changed. Oops, I just unplugged myself. So the fasting for athletes, and how do you say you just kind of eat whenever, because you're lifting more weights, not going for a swim, for example. So how do you fast? You work out mostly at nighttime, right? So
I'm an afternoon, evening.
Afternoon.
Yeah. I usually eat around 10:30, 11, and then I eat again 3-ish, 3 to 4. And then I usually work out probably 5 or 6. That's kind of my normal schedule.
So we've talked about spreading. So you're spreading your protein out about 3 to 4 hours or 4 hours. I know.
Yeah, it's really not. It's more about if I'm hungry. If sometimes I'll eat at 10:30, 11 and be like, man, I'm hungry again, and eat it too. Yeah. It depends. Sometimes I'm just, depending on what I have, the leaner I go for my first meal, it usually tends to last me satiety, last a little bit longer before I get hungry again. So, it's more about how I feel. I don't specifically time it.
Yeah. I like that because I feel it's kind of weird when people are just eating just to get their numbers at macros versus eating when we're actually kind of hungry. I think that's not negative programming, but programming the wrong relationships to food when you're just eating so I can get my 200 grams of protein in per day or 150, whatever it is, versus, which is hard because when you're eating more protein, you're more satiated and you don't have the appetite and you don't need to snack if you are, fat adapted and you're eating the right foods. But I think that's a struggle. It's like, okay, say you need 150 grams of protein a day and I'm eating, that's why I think you can't do OMAD or, you can't do that necessarily 2 meals a day. That's too much protein. You're not even going to get, I know I hear it like 30 to 50 grams is all you can take at once.
Yeah.
Absorb it. That's always like, no, yes, no. And then how do you get more, but you're not hungry? Then you don't want to eat before bed. So I was trying to figure out like mapping out having a cup of bone broth. That's only 10 grams of protein. And if you have an egg, that's not much. And then you have a Paleo Valley jerky stick. I need like 6 of them. So you have to have like a big meal. And so you find you're saying that you can eat like whatever, 50 grams and feel good. protein, you don't think there's any limit to digesting it? And
No, not at all. Your body's going to utilize whatever you eat. I've known guys who literally will eat in an hour time frame. They'll eat 4,000 calories of food. And that's all and they do OMAD. They eat 4,000 calories in one sitting ish. Again, it takes them an hour to do it. But they're good. And they are animals, like absolute animals in the gym and in life in general. But it's individual. For me, I feel good with 2 meals of about, a pound-ish of food each meal. And I don't have any problems with it. I think the intuitive versus tracking discussion is really individual based on where somebody is, what their goals are. And individuals can go back and forth between the two. There are times where I just decide, you know what, I'm not tracking anything. I'm going to be intuitive completely. And I may do that for a while. I've tracked enough to know where I should be, and I can look at a plate of food or look at what I put on the stove and have an idea of where I'm at. I don't have to track. But there are times like right now where I'm doing a specific experiment or I'm going through a change. And I tell people all the time, like, you don't have to track, but it's more beneficial if you're trying to change something to track it.
Well, it's like we say, test and not guess. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. You don't know if you don't know.
Measure it.
Right. If something's not going the way you think it should be going, you're not performing well. Your body composition is not changing like you want it to. You don't feel good. Something's off and you want to say, okay, what am I doing? Well, you have to track for that. If you figure it out and then you want to go back to intuitive, then have a blast. Do that, whatever works best for you. And I think that's the underlying thing. Whatever works best for you is always the caveat that goes with all the stuff we talk about.
Yeah, I think it's like I do a lot of times with new clients, a supplement audits. Like, do you need all this? And what are you taking and why and when to take it? And let's look at what you're eating. And let's work on digesting your food properly to get the nutrients from there and getting your gut healthier. So you're actually breaking food down and absorbing it in your gut. But I think a lot of it is, testing sometimes. And it's that fine line I'll talk to Natalie about when I interview her. But it is like for a female or someone that dieted, it's not just females, because I hear a lot of men having this, but their relationship with food, that it becomes obsessive. And if you grew up dieting all the time, like I did, this diet and that diet, at high school, I started dieting, and that it gets to be too in my head if I'm focused too long of counting calories, or now we're counting macros, but fixated on what I'm eating versus just like, oh, I'm hungry, I better eat something. Oh, I'm going to choose protein first and make that decision because I know I will feel so full if I have that protein. If I choose my coconut oil tortilla chips, I'll eat the whole bag and I'll still be hungry.
Yeah. And that's a simple change in mindset. Just that simple idea of, if I'm hungry, I want to focus on protein. Just that change in your mindset around food helps with a lot of things, because it just automatically gets you to be more nutrient dense, gets you to more bioavailability, it gets you to more satiety, and it makes the options you have to choose from way simpler. It pares things down to things that are probably going to be more beneficial for you than anything else. So that's why I tell people all the time, prioritize protein. If you're going to snack, if you feel like you need a snack, number one, you probably didn't eat enough in your last meal, right? Yeah, number two, if you feel like you need a snack, then find a protein to snack on.
Yes. So I say that all the time. It's like, well, let's look at why you're hungry. Let's look at what you ate beforehand. And you have to match your training. If you have a heavy training day, or maybe you worked out twice, or that workout was more intense, that fuel is going to be different than the day you're doing an active recovery day. And I think people need to, like, I know someone that just did a triathlon, a half Ironman. They've been training hard for months, but they didn't switch their nutrition when they stopped the race and they started going the recovery phase. I'm like, well, she gained a lot of weight. It's like, well, have you changed what you're eating? Because you're not training the same level. Yeah. You got to adjust that fueling and training level. So I go into the chapter, Common Myths Get Busted. I think is a really interesting chapter, and talking about that chart, the keto adapted one I was talking about. That's a great phases, because there's fat adapted 1 to 2 weeks, keto adapted 4 to 6 weeks, and then being keto optimized 8 to 12 weeks. So can you talk a little bit about that progression of being a keto athlete? Yeah.
This is based on my observation, my experience, the research that I've done. I think there's 3 levels of adaptation when it comes to being ketogenic or fat adapted. that people, we focus on the first two. I think we forget about the third one, and this may not be something that, particularly from a fitness and exercise perspective, that a lot of people are even aware of. And because it's not about ketogenesis, it's about gluconeogenesis. Yep. And that's the difference. So much misinformation and misunderstanding about what gluconeogenesis is. When we look at
that, maybe quick add a definition.
Yeah, well, I'll define it when I get to the.
Okay,
yeah,
so say people might forget.
The first level of adaptation, the fat adaptation, is basically just where your body starts getting better at using fat as fuel, as its primary source of fuel. That's where you get keto flu. That's where all this initial weight loss comes in, all that kind of stuff. And that is independent of where the fat is coming from, right? So I'm just getting better at burning fatty acids, turning them into ketones and using that for fuel. The second level, being keto adapted, is where your body is no longer requires as much exogenous fat and is starting to break down adipose tissue and be good at creating its own fatty acids and ketones, right? Breaking fatty acids down, turning those into fuel, and using the fuel that you have stored. Your body has it all there. It's there for a reason. And now we need to get it good at doing that. So that's where I find a lot of people need to start transitioning from taking maybe ketones, adding butter to everything, and doing a lot of that fat intake that we're told is keto, and say, hey, maybe we need to cut back on some of this stuff and let our body get better, because it's about efficiency of the processes in our body, right? If ketogenesis is ketosis, just means you have ketones. Ketogenesis means you're creating your own, right? And people, there's a misunderstanding there. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm in ketosis, so I'm ketogenic. Not necessarily. Two different things. And then the third level is where it blew me away when I started making these connections. I looked at what gluconeogenesis is. The definition of gluconeogenesis is the creation of fatty acids, the creation of glycogen from protein or fat. And I was like, wait a second. I've always heard that gluconeogenesis was the process of creating glycogen from glucose from proteins. It's going to break down all my muscle and turn everything into cake, right? And so I started looking into it more, and I realized that in a fat adapted, if you're ketogenic, if you're at a point where your body can burn fuel and you're starting to create your own ketones, the byproducts of ketogenesis, pyruvate, acetate, lactate, actually feed into gluconeogenesis. So as a process for generating glycogen, gluconeogenesis is another system, another process that we can improve its efficiency and get better at if we allow that to happen. So I see a lot of people that are doing exercise, athletic endeavors, CrossFit, whatever it may be, who are asking questions about cycling carbs and do I need to cycle carbs and all this other kind of stuff. And I'll be honest with you, for 90% of them, 95, 99, I don't know what percentage is, a very high percentage of people who are doing physical activity, I don't think they need to cycle carbs. Because if you're trying to improve and optimize your ketogenic lifestyle, then you need to make sure that gluconeogenesis is as efficient as possible. And that's going to get fed from your ketogenic lifestyle, not from what you eat. So there is a case, and I actually have some videos coming out on this, and I think I talked about it in the book a little bit. It's really kind of a volume thing. What's the goal? What are you doing? How much are you working? Are you doing so much volume that your body, even if you are optimizing gluconeogenesis, are you still exhausting the stores of glycogen that you have and you're not able to replenish in time for your next workout or your next series of programming? Do I need to then supplement with some carbs? And there is a case that some people may need to do that. But I don't think that it's the majority of, Joe Blows out there who are just trying to get in shape and get off the couch, who are working out 3 to 5 days a week for an hour at a time, who need to worry about it.
So if you deplete your muscle glycogen stores, you're saying you can replace those from breaking down your fat, stored fat from glyconeogenesis. Which everyone, this is how I remember it, because gluco is sugar, neo is new, genesis is creation. So that's how you remember. Same with your arm. This muscle is called brachioradialis. So you gotta, that's how you remember, brachioradialis. So I might say it differently because I should speed it up altogether. But so do you feel like there needs to be metabolic flexibility? Because there's a lot of information for athletes out there, endurance world, that we need to have flexibility to switch back to carb burning to fat burning and not be nutritional ketosis all the time. So what have you found?
Talk about there's a blending of a bunch of different concepts there.
Yep.
So metabolic flexibility from the perspective of being able to change back and forth and be efficient at the oxidative, glycolytic, and phosphogenic pathways. Absolutely. I think everybody needs that. The question is the flexibility from a digestive standpoint and where those fuels are coming from is a different thing. So our body's ability to process carbohydrates exogenously to provide that fuel is different than our body's ability to utilize that fuel for energy. Mm-hmm. So two different things. And I think, again, it's based on what is the goal? What is the person trying to do? What is their training volume? What is their recovery time? Unfortunately, I have not been able to find anything specifically studied or referenced for fat adapted low carb athletes and what the optimal or what the estimated or average glycogen replenishment time frame is. Right. So if somebody is low carb and they're eating less than, say, 25 grams of carbs a day and they're athletically active, how long does it take for gluconeogenesis to replenish their stores based on the activity that they did? I have no idea. I can't find anything. The stuff I found references somewhere between 10 and 13% within a 24-hour period, but I really have no data to show what that is. I do know that we average about 700 calories of glycogen in our body. So if you're working out and you're burning 250 calories of fuel a day, assuming that all of that is glycolytic, okay, which it's not in most cases, there's all three are going to be used. But let's just say you burn 250 calories of glycogen a day. You theoretically got 3 days of workouts before you need to even worry about replenishment. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into that. But I think, yes, from a performance perspective and a fuel utilization perspective, we need to train in all three pathways. Mm-hmm. From a nutritional, digestive, body's ability to process and break down macronutrients, I think that's very individual, and it's based on what the individual's requirements are. Like for me, I don't eat carbs. I don't work out to such a volume, and I make sure I get enough rest in between the workouts that I'm doing, that I've never had an issue in 4 years. I've never had an issue with fuel for any of my workouts. Yeah. I've never had a need to. And I operate at a fairly high level when it comes to CrossFit, weight training, and everything else. So
are you doing a 1 a day workout, or do you work out?
I do once a day.
Once a day.
Yeah.
See, I think we have to fine tune it a little bit for the female athlete, especially the cardio. With like example, speed run, hill repeats this morning, master swim at lunchtime. I'm going to go lift weights at 5:30 p.m. Mm-hmm. So do I need carbs? Not really, but I'll do maybe like, I think it's so personalized. And I think that's why people need to work with coaches as ourselves, because that's what I do with people. Like I says, well, let's look at what you're doing and create the ideal plan for Debbie, because I don't like to eat at night. So I'll take my essential aminos. And if I feel like I'm kind of hungry, I'll have make a little shake, or wintertime, maybe a cup of bone broth to try to get that protein. But I think, maybe I'll add a little bit more on the weekend if it's something or more vegetables. I mean, again, it goes back to me okay, I feel like that broccoli, or we had cauliflower the other day. I'm like, I don't feel like that. I just want the burger patty. So I think for athletes, female athletes, there's such different research coming out that women, the last week of their cycle, do need to eat more progesterone building foods that end up from a lot of vegetables or fruits, citrus fruits, berries, but also from grass-fed meat. So you don't have to have the vegetables it's actually not that many vegetables, but it's more the citrus fruits and papaya and things like that. Dr. Mindy has lots of info on that. what are progesterone hormone building foods, but then you can do the grass-fed meat and get a lot of those nutrients. So if you choose to, stick with more of a meat-based, animal-based diet, nutrient-rich food plan, I think it's good. But, I think listening to your body and lab testing, getting your labs done quarterly or twice a year to figure out how are your hormones doing and all of that for women, especially those athletes that are. The last subject I want to hit on is the chronic stress, because everyone probably knows my story. If chronic stress, you might be doing all the right things like I was, doing low carb, fasted workouts, doing lots of training. I was doing all the right things, but I still suddenly gained 30 pounds and had fatigue and depression, anxiety and hormone, everything screwed up. And my gut health, pathogens, everything was a downhill spiral since 2013, but I was doing all that stuff way back then, drinking bulletproof coffee by like a gallon and not eating till like 3:00 in the afternoon, but I'd work out, say 3-4 times a day with clients and whatnot. So what would you do for your perspective on applying, getting stronger? The goal is to build muscle, I think, and focus on quality of life, which is to me, building muscle, eating protein and managing our stress. Because all stressors accumulate and overfill our beaker of stress and cause imbalances, dysfunction. So what's your take on, how to manage stress and how stress impacts our ability to burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance?
I think simplifying the process is key. The more complex something is, the more stressful it is. I mean, that's by definition. Yeah. So if your goal is quality of life, and you have to be, number one, you have to be honest with yourself about how much am I stressing over things? How much of my time am I spending on improving my quality of life versus just living my life?
That's so true. How many people listening listen to like 20 different podcasts and get more information, then they come to you and have like, oh, okay, I'm trying these 50 different things I heard about. Right. And it's like, okay, that's just so stressful right there. Stop.
Right. So that's one of the reasons I love carnivore. That's one of the reasons, I try to keep my workouts fairly, I don't want to say simple, but fairly straightforward. And I don't try a bunch of different things. It's, as a trainer, one of the things that has always been a struggle for a good trainer is the best workouts are the most boring workouts, right? When you have a client who comes in and they're like, well, didn't we do this the other day? I'm like, yes, we did this the other day because we're trying to get you better at this. So I'm not going to have you do something over here when this is the goal. We're trying to get you better at this thing. Mm-hmm. So there's something to be said for boring. I forget. I want to say it was James Clear in the Atomic Habits book. It might have been. It was either him or there's another book, another habits book where he says you have to get okay with. You have to enjoy boring. Because if you're going to make progress, it's not going to be the flashy. It's not going to be the trendy. It's not going to be the coolest, latest thing that gets you to move forward. It's going to be sticking to the basics over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not exciting.
Well, that's why, I started doing, here's a program. I want you to do the same program 3 times a week for a month. And so you can see progress rather than every workout. You feel like you have to be this creative trainer and kick their butt and give them all this different stuff. But when I started training people online and writing their programs out, I can't, make it different every time because I have no idea what I'm talking about. So it is like, keep it simple. And then if I was in person with them, maybe add a little variations, but chronic stress. So I think people stressing so much external stressors, and we have all these hidden internal stressors, as we say, as practitioners. Hidden stands for hormones, immune dysfunction, digestion, detoxification, energy, and nervous systems. And how much of those, Reed Davis, founder of FDN, does all this. We have the DRESS protocol too. D is diet, rest, exercise, sleep, and supplements. So
I like that. Because that actually is a good segue. That ties directly into what I have in the book, where I talk about internal versus external stressors.
Yes, I know. I wrote that down. Like, that's what I talk about all the time. So
and that's the cool thing about the building strength and building muscle and building physical capacity is the stronger our bodies are, the more we are able to manage external stress. So when we have, and external stress isn't necessarily just physical activity. We have physical responses to emotional stress, to relational stress, to work stress, to family stress. Like there are things that happen in our body that I say this all the time, muscle solves a lot of problems. So the more muscle you can have, the better your hormone management is, the better your stress management is, the better your immune system is, the better your recovery. Like there's so many things that happen when you have more lean mass, that it's almost unquantifiable that the impact can have just on building muscle.
Well, that's what I say. My stress was from running my own business with $8,000 a month rent. I had to pay in downtown Bellevue, Washington, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. I mean, paying that rent each month and trying to run your own business. I would say fill in the blank. It doesn't mean you're doing 5 Ironmans a year. It could be that I have pressure to pay bills each month, and you have to make so much income, and your income, if you run your own business, you have to get clients in the door, and then it's just constant stress. Like I couldn't sleep, and you burn the candle at both ends, going to bed too late, waking up too early to get things done. And it's not sustainable. And I think that's with everything. That's a good word. Thank you, Debbie. Sustainability is the key thing for all of this. Like, how can I do this to go back to the beginning, improve my future self when I'm 70, 80, 90 years old?
Yep.
When I'm 90, I want to still be moving around and traveling. And so sustainability and variation. So I keep mixing things up. Say every 30 days, I, do a reset, maybe you do a different program, and then varying your nutrition. But I think it has to be sustainable. Like you're saying, it needs to be simple. Don't make it so complicated and trying so many things at once. Like keep it simple, do one thing this week, and pick one area of opportunity you're going to focus on, instead of like, okay, you just talked about 8 elements of the holistic method. I'm going to do all of those 8 things today. And whether they're going to do in a week from now, they're not going to do any of it.
Right.
So I think, picking one thing from your book that you're talking about, how did they get started? And, read the book first, but how did they transition to building muscle? What's the start?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I want to follow up on what you just said. And I think the aspect of that we need to wrap our heads around, a lot of people need to wrap is less is more. And that you said this earlier, right? But recovery and giving your body a chance to build is part of the program.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just work, because then you never actually get a chance to build and grow and get improved. So the concept of super compensation, I don't know if you've ever talked about that on your videos before, but super compensation is the process of getting better after you've added stress. So chronic stress, which is what we're talking about, chronic stress never allows for that aspect of the process to happen. So we need to let our bodies recover and get better. So if you want to improve your quality of life, your performance, your athletic endeavors, whatever it is, resting is part of the protocol. You're not taking a day off. You're enacting part of the protocol that's going to help you get better.
Is that not hormesis though? What that problem with hormesis, and I'm doing a great podcast with, what's his name, Feldman, that is not like cold showers. Yes, they're beneficial every day. No, weight training is great. Do you do it every day? It's not effective to do everything every day. So that's why for years I've been saying less is more is not better. And this is exactly what I talk about. That recovery is so hard for people to go, okay, I need an active recovery. Then I'm just going to go restorative yoga. I'm going to go get my steps in, move throughout the day, mobility drills, foundation work. Then I'm going to hit it hard the next day at the gym. So I think we're so that type A, AAA driven, ambitious, high charging athlete that we don't realize that's when you're getting the benefits in the downtime when your body's repairing recovery, as well as our sleep and optimizing our sleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the 3 steps or whatever steps, how do we get started to building protein? Let's simplify it and tell people.
Protein or building muscle. We can talk about it. So the 3 things you need for building muscle, which leads to improved quality of life, right? You need protein, you need adequate training, adequate resistance or stimulus, and then you need recovery. Those are the 3 things that you need. So I don't know if you want to talk about we don't need to talk about the whole, you need carbs to build muscle, because that's ridiculous. But you need protein. So you need adequate protein. My recommendation for most people to get started is 1 gram per pound of lean mass. That's what I work off of.
Not total body weight, because Dr. Leon says 1 pound per goal body weight. So if you're wanting to weigh 130 pounds.
Yeah. So it can be goal body weight. The difference is minimal for most people. But I look at it as a lean mass as a starting point. So if I weigh 185, my lean mass is 165. I try to get at least 165 grams of protein a day. I actually get probably closer to 190, 200 a day. It's kind of where I'm at. So,
but then how do you figure out your lean mass?
Person's at. Say again.
How do you figure out your lean mass if you don't have a scale or?
That's where going off your goal weight comes into play.
Okay.
So if you don't have an in-body scale or a way to get your body composition to know what your lean mass is, then going off your goal weight is perfectly fine. Because when it comes to protein, there's no too much. So if you go high and you're like, hey, my goal weight's 200 and your lean mass is 100, like, okay, whatever, go get 200 grams of protein, have a blast. You're going to do fantastic things. So I look at the protein number as a minimum. You need to work out and you need to do strength training on a regular basis. What that means for each person is completely different. Some people that may mean I just need to get up and out of my chair multiple times a day. Other people that may mean I need to go and find a fully comprehensive weight training program and lift 4 days a week. Everyone's going to be different, but you have to tell your muscles, right, that I'm doing something I've not done before. So I need to get stronger and build more muscle fiber, right? You can't get stronger by doing something you've already done. You have to do more than you've done in order to be able to do more than you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Good one. Yeah. I think that's so important to remember that, just keep it simple, start just working out in your house or your yard. And like for my mom to get up and do the laundry and go put stuff away, do just household daily activities is a good way to start. And then, try to get older adults on machines or, what's the guy on the cruise? Did that slow motion weight machine circuit.
Yep.
That's great. I think it's just not being intimidated, right? That you just think, oh my God, I have to go do a gym, that there's all these people there and it's intimidating a lot of people. So I think, working in a safe place, if it's like your outdoor backyard or your garage or go to a class, but just not focus on the cardio and focus on the muscles. I see people having fun doing Zumba at the Bay Club where I work out, but they're all smiling and laughing, but then let's do 3 days of weights, the alternative days, do stuff you love, but let's get out lift.
Yeah. There's two things to think about when it comes to just getting started. Like the people that I work, a lot of people I work with are at a point, many of them are at a point where like, it's just hard for me to get off the floor or walk up the stairs or whatever it may be. So the first thing is, if you have something in your life that's a daily activity that you find challenging, do more of that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a program. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. If getting up and down off the floor is hard for you, then every day get up and down off the floor until it becomes easy. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that you need to do, because that directly correlates to the function that you had in your daily life that leads to your independence. So, we talked to, we sat at the table with Nurse Cindy, and I did a video with her recently that'll be coming out where she talks about the daily activities that they test. They have like 5 or 6 different things. Like if you can't do these, if you can't bend over to tie your shoes, if you can't get up off the floor, if you can't do these things, then these are the ways that they determine if you need to be in a home or not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if you're having struggles with those things, do those things until they're not a struggle anymore. That's how you get started.
Yeah. And that, I was with someone that I might be related to this weekend. We're in the pool in their backyard, and to get out of the pool, I'm like, we need a railing here so I can get out. I'm like, okay, there's stairs all over here. Just steps. Right. And, she had a rock to hold on to, so it'd be safety wise, but just to get that climbing those 2 steps to get up and down. But that's important as you get older to do strength work and eat more protein, to be able to get up and down. Like I had a client years ago, to go to the bathroom, to go up the stairs, to get up off the floor. And then I realized, okay, everyone's goal is to lie on the floor and be able to stand up on their own without holding things. That's your number one thing I want you to be able to have the strength to do. And I know our listeners are younger and they're probably like, why are you talking about, 80-year-old exercises? But I think it's important to know you need to have that mobility and start working on that now when you're 50. So you're working on going back to aging gracefully, improving your future self, how you're thriving every day, not surviving. And, going back to looking at how my dad, he hurt his back a month ago and couldn't move. And he was in his recliner chair for 2 weeks. And then he started to have some other problems. And he's 2 weeks in the hospital, laying there doing nothing. And what happened? He had no strength. And the next step was nursing home, but they didn't want him. And sadly, he chose to, go to a better place. But I saw that, and it's just like, you guys now need to lift weights, stop just doing cardio training all the time, get stronger, and running doesn't count, or riding your bike up hills isn't the only part. You need to just, be able to do squats and lunges and step ups and deadlifts and all that. So I think it's important for endurance athletes to start preparing now.
Yeah. From the endurance athlete perspective, and I think I have a chapter in the book specifically for endurance athletes. Our body is a machine that works best when all the parts are working well.
That's so true.
Right. So when I don't understand what it is about what's broken in endurance athletes' heads, but they're so focused. And I say that jokingly, they're so focused on just their sport, just the thing that they love doing, that they often forget about all the other things that their body needs to be able to do and function. So getting that mindset into, what can I do to have the best program that's going to make me a better athlete first? And then once you have a good athletic foundation, which is much more broad, then you can specialize easily. It's a lot easier to get better as a runner if you have a good athletic base. Just like it's a lot easier to be a better football player if you have a good athletic base. If you look at, and this may or may not click with anybody, but if you look at the last few years of the NFL draft, most of the kids that get drafted out of college are multi-sport athletes, right? They went through high school, they played baseball, they played basketball, they played football, they played lacrosse, they played soccer, they did all these things. They didn't just play football. They were good athletes first, and then they have an opportunity to specialize in a sport. So I think a lot of people get into a sport and they go 100% into that and forget that there's a whole ball of wax that they're forgetting about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's good reminder that, you got to cross train and do it all, but just, it doesn't have to. I think people don't do it. I think athletes, because Ironman stuff can take a lot of time and people are already burning the candles at both ends, and add in strength training. So I try to make it that minimal dose we talk about all the time. Like, what's the minimal effective dose that this is going to work, get more bang for your buck? And it doesn't mean an hour in the gym, and your cardio swim, bike, run workouts can be, 45 minutes. You don't need this long, and then do your longer stuff on the weekend. But I think that way you adjust how long you're working out your swim, bike, runs for performance gains, but then shorten those. And then you have more time suddenly for the strength building.
That's a great, process where testing and documenting and tracking things makes a difference, because minimal effective dose for the endurance training is often way less than what people think it needs to be.
Yes.
So I see people like running all these hundreds of kilometers a week, and it's like, guys, you don't need to do it that much.
Are you Canadian? You said kilometers.
I know a lot of people that do. I know a lot of people that do that instead of miles.
It's because US is the only one that does that.
Yeah.
So I know we can talk forever, and we'll both be at KetoCon, and I'll put this out next week so we can have it the week before KetoCon. So we'll record that. What are you talking about at KetoCon?
I think it's going to be the similar talk to what I did on the cruise, how to avoid stalls, or how to avoid plateaus and never stall again. Good.
Yeah. And I'm talking about fueling and training for the low carb athlete. Okay. So endurance sport perspective and looking at that. But I think definitely have to talk again, and everyone can find your book on your Amazon. Where do you find your book?
Amazon. You just look for it on Amazon.
The Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book by Coach Bronson, and Dr. Ken Berry did the forward of it. Very nice. And it's a great book to have. And do you have online coaching you're doing too?
Yeah, I do. I have a 6-month program that's pretty in depth, fitness, coaching, nutrition, mindset, all the things. And then I can also I do like one-on-one calls and stuff like that.
Good. Well, thanks for your time and chatting shop today. It's always great. And if people want to go on our low carb cruise next year, I'm already got my mom to come with me.
Do it. Oh my God. I didn't even think about asking my family to come. That'd be fantastic.
Well, yeah, Neil didn't want to go again. So I am bringing my mom, but she probably won't go to the conference, but it is
my
great.
mom's coming to KetoCon.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I think it's a great cruise to look for. It's in when is it? It's June, beginning of June next year is a cruise out of Galveston, Texas. So you can look up Low Carb Cruise because it's great speakers and we have a really good time. And a few of us go to the gym and lift and then, eating great food every night. It was easy to do carnivore because everything else kind of tasted gross. So the meat-based diet was easier on a cruise for sure. And a KetoCon will be great. And then you have something else this fall. You're speaking at the Palooza.
I'm not sure. I'm thinking about going to, there's a ton of, this year, now that everything's open again,
I know it's busy.
I don't know what to choose from. I might be going to San Diego. I might be going to Boca next year. Definitely going to the PhD Summit in Tennessee in September. And there's a couple other things going on. If anybody's on the East Coast, there's a meetup in New Jersey.
Is that a meetup, MEAT or MEET?
Yep, it's both.
I know they have the meetups in Austin a lot.
Yeah,
I gotta host one in San Diego because we've got this hilltop acre property that's great for parties. So if anyone in San Diego wants a meetup, we can do some barbecue over here. So great. Well, I will see you soon. And we'll put this on the YouTube channel, Low Carb Athlete, and my Instagram, Facebook, Low Carb Athlete as well. So you can find everything there. And what's your YouTube channel for you, Bronson?
So Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness. Pretty much if you go anywhere on the internet and you type in Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness, I should pop up somewhere.
That is easier. I changed everything to Low Carb Athlete and all my affiliate links to Low Carb Athlete. So to simplify again, we learn as we get 50, you learn to keep it simple, complicated and sustainable. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.